Ladies and gentlemen, too often, being the nice girl becomes a trap or role that demands self-sacrifice, silence, and compliance at the expense of your own needs and dreams. Society conditions women to prioritize others' comfort, to avoid confrontation, and to shrink themselves to fit into predefined molds. But what does nice truly get you? More often than not, it leads to being overlooked, undervalued, and taken for granted. It's time to redefine what it means to be a strong, kind, and authentic woman. Being nice should never mean being a pushover. It's not about abandoning kindness, it's about pairing it with boundaries. Speak up for what you believe in, stand firm in your decisions, and honor your worth. The world needs your strength, not your silence. Setting boundaries is one of the most transformative acts you can do for yourself, yet it is often the hardest to implement. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define what you are willing to accept in your relationships, your work, and your life. They are not walls to shut people out, but tools to preserve your emotional health, time, and energy. Despite their importance, the idea of setting boundaries is often met with hesitation, particularly for those who have been conditioned to be the nice girl. Many women find themselves struggling to say no, fearing they'll disappoint others, create conflict, or be labeled as selfish. But in reality, boundaries are not just an act of self-preservation, they are an act of self-respect. For years, society has praised women for their ability to care for others, to nurture, and to selflessly give. While these traits are admirable, they can often lead to burnout and resentment if not balanced with self-care. The narrative of the nice girl has perpetuated the idea that being agreeable and accommodating is a virtue, even when it comes at the expense of your own needs. The truth is, constantly putting others first and neglecting your own priorities doesn't make you a better person. It makes you a person who is emotionally drained and unfulfilled. Setting boundaries is the antidote to this cycle, and it starts with shifting your mindset. Boundaries are not acts of rejection or aggression. They are declarations of what you will and will not tolerate. They are about being clear and honest about your limits, both with yourself and with others. For example, if you are always the one to stay late at work because no one else will, you might begin to feel resentful over time. This resentment stems from the fact that your boundaries have been crossed not by others, but by your own inability to enforce them. Recognizing this is the first step toward change. The next step is learning to say no without guilt. For many, this is easier said than done. The fear of disappointing others or being perceived as difficult often holds people back. However, it's important to remember that no is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an elaborate explanation for your choices. Saying no doesn't make you rude or unkind, it makes you honest. In fact, being upfront about your limits can strengthen your relationships by fostering mutual respect and understanding. One of the keys to setting boundaries is understanding your own needs. Take time to reflect on what drains you and what energizes you. Are there certain relationships, tasks, or commitments that consistently leave you feeling depleted? Once you've identified these areas, it's time to create boundaries around them. For instance, if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed by constant last-minute plans with friends, you might set a boundary by letting them know you need advance notice before making plans. This is not about rejecting your friends, it's about respecting your own time and mental space. When setting boundaries, communication is crucial. People cannot respect boundaries they are unaware of, so it's essential to express your limits clearly and kindly. For example, if a colleague frequently interrupts your workflow with non-urgent requests, you might say, "I value our collaboration, but I need uninterrupted time to focus on my tasks. Can we schedule a time to discuss these things instead?" This approach is both assertive and respectful, showing that you value the relationship while also standing firm in your needs. Of course, not everyone will respond positively to your boundaries, especially if they are used to you always saying yes. You may encounter resistance, guilt tripping, or even anger. It's important to remember that these reactions are not a reflection of you, but of the other person's inability to adjust to the new dynamic. Stand your ground, even if it feels uncomfortable. Over time, most people will come to respect your boundaries, and those who don't may not belong in your inner circle. Another aspect of setting boundaries without guilt is recognizing that you cannot control how others perceive you. Many women struggle with the fear of being seen as selfish or unkind, but the truth is, self-care is not selfish. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself ensures that you have the energy and capacity to show up fully for others. By setting boundaries, you're not only protecting your own well-being, but also modeling healthy behavior for those around you. Boundaries also help you avoid burnout. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the cycle of overcommitting and under-prioritizing yourself. Whether it's taking on extra responsibilities at work, constantly saying yes to social obligations, or being the go-to person for everyone's problems, overextending yourself can lead to physical and emotional exhaustion. Setting boundaries allows you to create balance in your life, giving you the space to rest, recharge, and focus on what truly matters to you. It's also worth noting that setting boundaries is not a one-time event. As you grow and evolve, so will your needs and limits. What worked for you a year ago might not work for you now, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to reevaluate and adjust your boundaries as needed. This is not a sign of weakness, but of self-awareness and growth. Practicing self-compassion is another important element of setting boundaries without guilt. It's natural to feel uncomfortable or even guilty at first, especially if you're not used to putting yourself first. Acknowledge these feelings without letting them dictate your actions. Remind yourself that setting boundaries is an act of love for yourself and for the people in your life. By taking care of yourself, you're able to show up as the best version of yourself, which ultimately benefits everyone around you. Lastly, surround yourself with people who respect and support your boundaries. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. If someone consistently disregards your boundaries, it's worth considering whether that relationship is serving you or draining you. Remember, you deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift you, not those who take advantage of your kindness. In conclusion, setting boundaries without guilt is a skill that takes practice and patience. It requires self-awareness, clear communication, and the courage to prioritize your own needs. It's not about shutting people out or being unkind. It's about creating a life that aligns with your values and allows you to thrive. Assertiveness is the cornerstone of confidence and self-respect, yet it's often misunderstood. Many equate assertiveness with aggression, believing it involves forcefulness or dominating others. However, true assertiveness is about expressing your thoughts, feelings, and needs in a way that is clear, direct, and respectful. It's a balanced communication style that stands between passivity and aggression, one where you advocate for yourself without violating the rights of others. For women who have been conditioned to be the nice girl, embracing assertiveness can feel uncomfortable at first. It challenges long-standing social expectations that women should be accommodating, agreeable, and non-confrontational. However, assertiveness is not only empowering but also necessary for building healthy relationships, achieving goals, and living authentically. At its core, assertiveness is about valuing your own voice. It starts with recognizing that your thoughts, opinions, and emotions are valid and deserve to be heard. For many, this is easier said than done. Years of social conditioning may have taught you to doubt yourself, to prioritize others' needs over your own, or to avoid speaking up to keep the peace. These patterns can be difficult to unlearn, but they are not irreversible. The first step toward assertiveness is to challenge the belief that you must always put others first. Instead, understand that your needs and boundaries are just as important as anyone else's. One of the most effective ways to cultivate assertiveness is to practice self-awareness. Pay attention to situations where you feel uncomfortable, overlooked, or resentful. These feelings are often indicators that your boundaries have been crossed or that your voice has been ignored. Reflect on these moments and ask yourself, what did I want to say but didn't? Why didn't I speak up? What would I do differently next time? These questions can help you identify patterns and areas where you need to assert yourself more. Once you've gained clarity on what you want to communicate, the next step is learning how to articulate it effectively. Assertiveness requires clear, concise, and confident communication. This means avoiding vague or apologetic language and instead stating your needs directly. For example, instead of saying, "I'm sorry, but I think I might need some help with this," try saying, "I need assistance with this project to meet the deadline." Notice how the second statement is not only clearer but also more confident. It conveys your needs without unnecessary apologies or hesitation. Body language also plays a crucial role in assertiveness. Your posture, tone of voice, and eye contact can either reinforce or undermine your message. Standing tall, speaking calmly but firmly, and maintaining steady eye contact signal confidence and self-assurance. On the other hand, slouching, speaking softly, or avoiding eye contact can make you appear unsure or timid, even if your words are assertive. Practicing assertive body language can help you feel more confident and reinforce your message. Another essential aspect of assertiveness is learning to handle criticism and conflict. Many people shy away from being assertive because they fear backlash or rejection. While it's true that not everyone will respond positively to assertiveness, it's important to remember that you cannot control others' reactions, only your own. When faced with criticism or conflict, stay calm and composed. Acknowledge the other person's perspective, but don't feel obligated to agree or back down. For instance, if someone criticizes your decision, you might say, "I understand your concerns, but I believe this is the best choice for me." This response shows that you respect their opinion while standing firm in your decision. It's also crucial to recognize that assertiveness is not about winning or proving others wrong. It's about advocating for yourself in a way that fosters mutual respect and understanding. For example, if a coworker takes credit for your idea, an assertive response might be, "I appreciate your enthusiasm for this project, but I want to clarify that this idea originated from me during our meeting last week." This statement addresses the issue directly without resorting to blame or hostility, focusing instead on setting the record straight. Assertiveness also requires saying no when necessary. Many people, especially women, struggle with saying no because they fear disappointing others or being perceived as uncooperative. However, constantly saying yes to avoid conflict can lead to overcommitment, stress, and resentment. Learning to say no is an essential part of assertiveness. When saying no, be firm but polite. For example, instead of saying, "I don't think I can do this, but maybe I'll try," say, "I can't take on this task right now due to my current workload." This response is clear, respectful, and leaves no room for misinterpretation. Practicing assertiveness often involves stepping outside of your comfort zone. At first, it may feel unnatural or even intimidating, especially if you're used to being passive or accommodating. Start small by practicing assertiveness in low-stakes situations, such as expressing a preference or offering an opinion in a casual conversation. Gradually work your way up to more challenging scenarios, such as setting boundaries or addressing conflicts. The more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. One of the most significant benefits of assertiveness is that it fosters healthier relationships. When you express your needs and boundaries clearly, you give others the opportunity to understand and respect them. This can prevent misunderstandings, resentment, and unnecessary conflict. Additionally, assertiveness encourages others to be open and honest with you, creating a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Assertiveness also has a positive impact on your self-esteem. Each time you advocate for yourself, you reinforce the belief that your voice matters and that you are worthy of respect. This can have a ripple effect on other areas of your life, boosting your confidence and empowering you to pursue your goals. Whether it's negotiating a raise, asserting your boundaries in a relationship, or simply expressing your opinion, assertiveness allows you to take control of your life and live authentically. It's important to note that assertiveness is not a one-size-fits-all skill. Different situations may require different approaches, and what works for one person may not work for another. The key is to find a style of assertiveness that feels authentic to you. This may involve experimenting with different techniques, seeking feedback from trusted friends or mentors, or even working with a coach or therapist to build your skills. As you embrace assertiveness, you may encounter resistance from others, particularly if they are accustomed to you being passive or accommodating. Some people may test your boundaries or react negatively to your newfound confidence. Remember that their reactions are not your responsibility. Stay focused on your goals and remind yourself why assertiveness is important to you. Over time, most people will come to respect your assertiveness, and those who don't may not be the right people to have in your life. Finally, remember that assertiveness is a journey, not a destination. It's a skill that requires ongoing practice, reflection, and adjustment. Be patient with yourself as you navigate this journey and celebrate your progress along the way. Each step you take toward assertiveness is a step toward greater self-respect, confidence, and empowerment. Setting and redefining boundaries is one of the most critical steps in transforming from being the nice girl to a confident woman who values her own needs, desires, and limits. Boundaries are invisible lines that define what you are willing to accept in your relationships, interactions, and life overall. They are essential for maintaining your emotional well-being, protecting your time and energy, and ensuring that others treat you with the respect you deserve. For many women, however, setting boundaries can feel daunting or even selfish. Society often conditions women to prioritize others' comfort and needs over their own, leaving little room for personal boundaries. This conditioning can lead to burnout, resentment, and a loss of self-identity, which makes redefining boundaries not just important but necessary. At the heart of redefining boundaries is the realization that you have the right to protect your space, time, and emotional energy. It's about understanding that your well-being matters as much as anyone else's, and that honoring your limits is not an act of selfishness, but one of self-respect. This shift in perspective can feel revolutionary, especially if you've spent years saying yes to everything, tolerating disrespect, or sacrificing your needs for the sake of others. The first step in redefining boundaries is recognizing where they are currently lacking in your life. Reflect on the relationships, situations, and commitments that leave you feeling drained, overwhelmed, or undervalued. These feelings often point to areas where your boundaries are being crossed. Redefining boundaries also involves gaining clarity on your values and priorities. What matters most to you? What are you willing to tolerate, and what is non-negotiable? Understanding these aspects of yourself helps you set boundaries that align with your authentic self. For example, if you value honesty, you might set a boundary against tolerating lies or manipulative behavior. If you prioritize your mental health, you might set boundaries around your availability for emotionally draining conversations. These boundaries are deeply personal and may look different for everyone. One of the challenges of redefining boundaries is learning to communicate them effectively. This requires a combination of clarity, assertiveness, and empathy. When communicating a boundary, it's important to be direct and specific about what you need. For instance, instead of saying, "I need some space," you might say, "I need uninterrupted time from 7 to 9 p.m. every evening to focus on my work." This specificity leaves no room for ambiguity and helps others understand your needs clearly. At the same time, it's helpful to approach boundary-setting conversations with empathy. Acknowledge the other person's perspective, but remain firm in your stance. For example, you could say, "I understand that you're used to me being available at all times, but I need to set limits to prioritize my well-being." Enforcing boundaries can be even more challenging than setting them. People who are accustomed to you being overly accommodating may resist or test your limits when you start asserting yourself. They may guilt-trip you, accuse you of being selfish, or even become angry. This reaction is often a reflection of their discomfort with change rather than a reflection of your worth. It's important to stand firm in the face of resistance. Remind yourself why you set the boundary in the first place and focus on the bigger picture of protecting your well-being. Over time, most people will learn to respect your boundaries, and those who don't may not be the right people to have in your life. Redefining boundaries also requires consistency. It's not enough to set a boundary once and expect it to stick. You must reinforce your boundaries regularly, especially in situations where they are repeatedly tested. For example, if a coworker continues to interrupt your focus time despite your requests, you might need to remind them of your boundary each time it happens. This consistency signals that you are serious about your limits and that you expect them to be respected. Another crucial aspect of redefining boundaries is learning to say no. For many women, saying no can feel incredibly uncomfortable. It may bring up fears of disappointing others, being seen as unkind, or facing conflict. However, saying no is a powerful way to protect your time, energy, and priorities. When you say no to something that doesn't align with your values or goals, you are saying yes to yourself. Practice saying no in a way that is firm yet polite. For instance, instead of saying, "I don't think I can do that," say, "I won't be able to take that on at this time." This response is clear and leaves no room for negotiation or guilt. In addition to saying no, redefining boundaries involves learning to prioritize self-care. Boundaries are not just about keeping others in check, they are also about nurturing yourself. This means setting aside time for activities that recharge and fulfill you, whether it's reading a book, exercising, spending time in nature, or simply resting. Self-care is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And protecting that time is an essential part of boundary setting. It's also important to remember that boundaries can and should evolve over time. As you grow and change, your needs and priorities may shift, and your boundaries should reflect those changes. For example, a boundary you set in your early career, such as always being available for work-related calls, might need to be adjusted as you take on more responsibilities or prioritize work-life balance. Regularly reassess your boundaries to ensure they continue to serve and protect you. Redefining boundaries is not just about setting limits with others, it's also about setting limits with yourself. This involves recognizing and addressing any self-sabotaging behaviors or thought patterns that undermine your boundaries. For instance, if you struggle with people-pleasing, you might need to set an internal boundary against overcommitting or agreeing to things out of guilt. Similarly, if you have a habit of overworking, you might need to set boundaries around your work hours and take intentional breaks. Finally, redefining boundaries is about embracing the discomfort that comes with change. Transforming from the nice girl to a confident, boundary-setting woman is not always easy. It may require difficult conversations, facing resistance, and stepping outside of your comfort zone. However, this discomfort is a sign of growth and progress. Each time you assert a boundary, you are reclaiming your power and taking a step toward living authentically. Recognizing your own needs and priorities is a fundamental step in reclaiming your power and redefining your identity. For too long, many women have been conditioned to place the needs of others above their own, often sacrificing their personal goals, happiness, and well-being in the process. This conditioning can lead to a life that feels unbalanced, unfulfilled, and disconnected from who you truly are. The journey of moving away from being the nice girl starts with acknowledging your own needs and priorities, which means shifting your focus inward and allowing yourself the space to rediscover what truly matters to you. One of the most important aspects of recognizing your needs is understanding that you are worthy of care and attention. This simple yet profound realization can be transformative. Many women feel guilt or selfishness when prioritizing themselves, but it's vital to remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Taking care of your needs is not just an act of self-love, it's also a way to ensure that you have the energy and capacity to give to others in a healthy, sustainable way. This means learning to listen to your body, mind, and emotions and paying attention to what they are telling you. Are you feeling exhausted? Overwhelmed? Unfulfilled? These feelings are not weaknesses or failures, they are signals that your needs are not being met. Recognizing your needs also involves identifying what truly fulfills you. This can be a deeply personal and introspective process, as it requires peeling back the layers of societal expectations, cultural norms, and external pressures to uncover what makes you feel alive and whole. What activities bring you joy? What relationships make you feel valued and supported? What dreams and aspirations excite you? Answering these questions can help you gain clarity about what you need to prioritize in your life. For example, if you find that spending time in nature rejuvenates you, you might make it a priority to schedule regular walks, hikes, or outdoor activities. If pursuing a creative passion like writing or painting fulfills you, you might carve out time each week to dedicate to that passion. Another critical aspect of recognizing your needs is learning to differentiate between wants and needs. Wants are desires or preferences that may bring temporary satisfaction, while needs are essential for your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. For instance, you may want to attend every social event you're invited to, but you might need quiet time to recharge after a busy week. Understanding this distinction can help you make decisions that align with your true priorities rather than succumbing to external pressures or fleeting impulses. Recognizing your priorities goes hand in hand with identifying your needs. Your priorities reflect what matters most to you and where you want to focus your time, energy, and resources. These priorities will likely vary depending on your life stage, circumstances, and personal values. For example, your priorities may include advancing your career, nurturing your relationships, maintaining your health, or pursuing personal growth. Whatever your priorities are, it's important to define them clearly and revisit them regularly to ensure they align with your evolving goals and aspirations. To recognize your priorities effectively, it can be helpful to create a list of what's most important to you. Start by writing down all the areas of your life that require your attention, such as work, family, friendships, health, hobbies, and personal development. Then rank these areas in order of importance based on your current values and goals. This exercise can help you gain clarity on where you want to direct your energy and identify areas where you may need to make changes or set boundaries. Recognizing your needs and priorities also involves letting go of the need for external validation. Many women seek approval or affirmation from others as a way of feeling valued or worthy. However, relying on external validation can leave you vulnerable to other people's opinions and expectations, which may not align with your true self. Instead, focus on cultivating internal validation by affirming your own worth and celebrating your achievements, no matter how small. Practice self-compassion and remind yourself that you are deserving of love and respect simply because you exist, not because of what you do or how others perceive you. In addition to self-awareness, recognizing your needs and priorities requires taking action to honor them. This means making intentional choices that reflect your values and goals, even when those choices are difficult or uncomfortable. For example, if maintaining your mental health is a priority, you might need to say no to commitments that feel overwhelming or take a break from relationships that drain your energy. If pursuing a long-held dream is important to you, you might need to set aside time, money, or other resources to invest in that dream. Taking action to honor your needs and priorities can be empowering and affirming, as it shows that you value yourself and your aspirations. Another important aspect of recognizing your needs and priorities is practicing gratitude for what you have and celebrating your progress. It's easy to focus on what's missing or what's not going well, but taking time to appreciate the positive aspects of your life can help you stay grounded and motivated. Celebrate your efforts to prioritize yourself, no matter how small they may seem. For example, if you set aside 30 minutes for self-care or turn down an obligation that didn't align with your priorities, take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate that choice. These small victories can add up over time and reinforce your commitment to honoring your needs. Finally, recognizing your needs and priorities is an ongoing process. As you grow and change, your needs and priorities may evolve, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to reassess and adjust as needed. Life is dynamic, and what worked for you yesterday may not work for you today. Stay open to learning about yourself and be willing to adapt as you discover new aspects of who you are and what you need. Setting boundaries effectively is one of the most empowering steps a person can take in their journey of self-respect and self-empowerment. Boundaries are not just lines you draw to keep people out, they are the limits you define to protect your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. They are an essential part of maintaining healthy relationships and creating a life that aligns with your values and priorities. For many women, especially those conditioned to be nice girls, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable or even selfish. However, it is crucial to understand that boundaries are not about shutting others down, they are about honoring yourself and teaching others how to treat you. To begin setting boundaries effectively, it's essential to first identify what you are willing to tolerate and what you are not. This requires a deep understanding of your values, needs, and priorities. Take some time to reflect on areas in your life where you feel overwhelmed, taken advantage of, or disrespected. These feelings are often indicators of a boundary that needs to be established. For instance, if you find yourself constantly saying yes to work requests that infringe on your personal time, it may be time to set boundaries around your availability. If certain relationships leave you feeling drained or undervalued, it may be time to reassess the dynamics and assert your limits. Once you've identified the areas where boundaries are needed, the next step is to communicate them clearly and assertively. This can be challenging, especially if you fear conflict or rejection. However, it's important to remember that setting boundaries is not about being aggressive or confrontational. It's about expressing your needs in a way that is respectful to both yourself and others. Use clear, concise language to state your boundary and explain why it's important to you. For example, instead of saying, "I don't like it when you do that," you might say, "I feel overwhelmed when I'm asked to take on extra tasks at the last minute, so I'd appreciate it if you could give me more notice in the future." This approach focuses on your feelings and needs rather than blaming or criticizing the other person. Learning to set boundaries also involves recognizing that not everyone will respond positively, and that's okay. Some people may resist or push back against your boundaries, especially if they are used to you being overly accommodating. This is not a reflection of your worth or the validity of your boundary. It's a reflection of their own discomfort with change. Stay firm in your commitment to honoring yourself, even if others don't immediately understand or agree with your boundaries. It can be helpful to remind yourself that you are not responsible for other people's reactions, and that setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. Another important aspect of setting boundaries effectively is being consistent. Once you've established a boundary, it's important to follow through and enforce it. If you make exceptions or allow others to cross your boundaries without consequences, you risk sending mixed signals and undermining your own efforts. For example, if you've set a boundary around not answering work emails after hours, but you occasionally respond to emails late at night, you may be inadvertently encouraging others to ignore your boundary. Consistency shows that you are serious about your limits and helps others learn to respect them. Setting boundaries also requires a willingness to say no. For many people, especially those who identify as nice girls, saying no can feel uncomfortable or even impossible. However, it's important to recognize that saying no is not an act of rejection, it's an act of self-care. When you say no to something that doesn't align with your values or priorities, you are saying yes to yourself and your well-being. Practice saying no in a way that is firm yet polite, and resist the urge to over-explain or justify your decision. For example, instead of saying, "I can't help with that because I have so much else going on and I feel bad about letting you down," you might simply say, "I'm sorry, but I can't take that on right now." In addition to saying no, setting boundaries effectively also involves recognizing when to walk away. There may be situations or relationships where your boundaries are consistently ignored or disrespected, despite your best efforts to communicate them. In these cases, it's important to prioritize your own well-being and consider whether the relationship or situation is truly serving you. Walking away can be difficult, especially if you care deeply about the other person or fear the consequences of letting go. However, it's important to remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and that you have the right to protect your peace and happiness. Learning to set boundaries effectively also involves practicing self-compassion. It's natural to feel guilty or uncertain when you first start setting boundaries, especially if you are not used to prioritizing yourself. Be kind to yourself and remind yourself that it's okay to put your needs first. Remember that boundaries are not about shutting others out, they are about creating space for your own growth and well-being. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and acknowledge the courage it takes to stand up for yourself. Another important aspect of setting boundaries is recognizing the difference between healthy boundaries and walls. While boundaries are designed to protect and honor your needs, walls are often built out of fear or a desire to keep others at a distance. Healthy boundaries are flexible and allow for connection and communication, while walls are rigid and can isolate you from others. It's important to strike a balance between protecting yourself and remaining open to meaningful relationships. This may involve adjusting your boundaries as needed and being willing to engage in honest, vulnerable conversations with those you trust. Setting boundaries also requires a willingness to challenge societal expectations and cultural norms. Many women are raised to believe that they should always be accommodating, selfless, and agreeable, even at the expense of their own needs. These messages can make it difficult to assert boundaries without feeling guilty or selfish. However, it's important to recognize that these expectations are often rooted in outdated stereotypes and do not reflect your worth or potential. By setting boundaries, you are challenging these norms and reclaiming your right to live authentically and unapologetically. Finally, setting boundaries effectively involves ongoing learning and growth. Boundaries are not one size fits all, and what works for one person may not work for another. Take time to reflect on your experiences and adjust your boundaries as needed. Seek out resources such as books, workshops, or therapy to deepen your understanding of boundaries and gain new tools for setting them effectively. Surround yourself with people who respect and support your boundaries, and be willing to let go of relationships that do not. Remember that setting boundaries is a lifelong journey, and it's okay to take it one step at a time. Setting boundaries is not just a skill, it's a declaration of self-worth. It's a statement that you value your time, energy, and emotional well-being enough to protect them. When you learn to set boundaries effectively, you create a foundation for healthier relationships, greater self-respect, and a life aligned with your true values. Boundaries are not about building walls to keep people out. They are bridges that teach others how to connect with you in a way that honors your individuality. By identifying your limits, communicating them clearly, and standing firm in their enforcement, you pave the way for a life where your needs are not just acknowledged but respected. It's important to remember that setting boundaries is not a one-time action, but a continuous process of growth and self-discovery. There will be challenges and moments of discomfort, especially if you've spent years prioritizing others over yourself. However, each step you take toward establishing and maintaining boundaries is a step toward reclaiming your power and fostering your self-worth. The journey of setting boundaries may not always be easy, but it is undoubtedly rewarding. It allows you to break free from the pressures of constantly pleasing others and step into a life where your voice matters, your needs are honored, and your energy is preserved for the things that truly matter to you. So, give yourself permission to set boundaries unapologetically. Recognize that you are deserving of respect, and the people who genuinely value you will honor the boundaries you establish. In setting boundaries, you not only protect your peace, but also create space for personal growth, fulfilling relationships, and a life that feels authentically yours. Stop being the nice girl who says yes to everyone but herself. Start being the woman who says yes to her own power, her own dreams, and her own voice. You don't have to be mean to be strong. You just have to stop apologizing for being who you are.